I never imagined I'd be packing up my office at Andover Tech on a grey Thursday morning in Seattle, staring down at a cardboard box filled with the last 4 years of my life. The sleek corner suite I had worked my way into with missed holidays, sleepless product launches and boardroom battles now felt hollow, as if it belonged to someone else entirely. "You've got 30 minutes, Clara," said Benjamin Andover from the doorway, his umbrella dripping onto the polished floors. His tone was detached, almost smug, as he straightened his designer coat. "Danielle will be stepping in as VP of Strategy. Immediately Danielle, my cousin. The same Danielle who didn't even finish college, who bounced between passion projects until 2 months ago, when she suddenly decided tech was fun. She'd walked in with a title and a cornered desk thanks to cozy ties with Ben's wife. I gently placed my awards into the box Team Leader of the Year, Best Performing Division, and the plaque marking our $20 million Series B milestone. Each one a silent witness to the hours, the sacrifices the grind tossed aside like they meant nothing. "Oh, and your badge," Ben added, raising an eyebrow. "Security protocol. We can't take chances." I handed it over without hesitation, the corner of my mouth twitching. What he didn't know, what no one at Andover knew, was that I held the deed to the building through a quiet entity called Marlowe Ventures, a name borrowed from my grandmother. I was their landlord. "Of course," I said smoothly, "though I'd suggest someone look over the lease clause we discussed. Marlowe sent a notice yesterday." Ben waved it off. "Danielle can handle it. She's better with people than you ever were." If only he understood the clause wasn't about a rent review. It was the trigger termination within 24 hours for any tenant found violating fair employment clauses, like, say, wrongful dismissal tied to nepotism, as I placed the last item into my box. A photograph of me at 14, standing with my grandmother in front of this building. Before renovation, I could still hear her voice one day. They'll learn that power isn't about titles, it's about deeds and who holds them. At 17, I'd mastered zoning law. At 26. I owned this address, and now they were standing on my ground by 21. I'd founded Marlowe Ventures using the inheritance my grandmother left me. And by 24, I owned the building that Andover Tech now leased, offering them a competitive rate, not because I needed their money, but because I always knew a day like this would come one more thing, Ben Andover said as I picked up my box. The severance package we discussed, the board thought it would be better allocated as part of Daniel's signing bonus. He tilted his head, mock sympathy, barely disguising his smugness. "I'm sure you understand. Family first, after all. Family first." I'd heard that phrase so many times. It was practically a lullaby when Danielle needed help. Paying off her credit cards, my parents drained my college fund when she totaled her Audi and needed a new one overnight. I was told to be grateful I even had a bus pass, and when she decided she wanted my job, our parents called to gently remind me how selfish it would be to stand in her way. "Of course," I replied, brushing past him. Family first. The elevator ride down was silent, but my thoughts moved quickly by. Now my attorney, Naomi, would have received my green light. The paperwork was ready. The eviction notice would land on Andover Tech's legal desk by sunrise, citing a breach of the lease's ethics clause. Wrongful dismissal with documented evidence of nepotism, targeted rumours, and a hostile work environment. I had the receipts, every word, every meeting, every whisper in the lobby. Danielle stood with Elaine Andover, perfectly poised in a tailored blush blazer. Danielle smirked as if she'd won. "Glad you're clearing out." Elaine sneered. "Danielle wants to redesign the entire floor. Your taste was cold." Danielle gave a sheepish shrug. "I'll take care of things, Clara. I promise." I stepped back when she reached for my arm. "Just like you took care of the narrative, right?" "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Elaine said, rolling her eyes. "It's just business, just like it wasn't personal when Danielle hinted I was emotionally unstable. Just like it wasn't personal when she spread lies about me flirting with clients. Just business." "You're right," I said, my voice calm. "It is just business outside." The rain had finally stopped, but a storm still lingered in the air. I placed my box in the back seat of my silver sedan. Not flashy, not new, but mine. My reflection in the window didn't show defeat. It showed ownership. I didn't look like someone who had been defeated. I looked like someone who was about to win my phone, buzzed with a message from Naomi. All documents, signed, notice will be delivered at 900 a.m. Sharp, I typed back one word, proceed as I drove through the quiet streets back to my modest home in West Seattle. I thought about what tomorrow would bring Ben's face when he realized Andover Tech had just 24 hours to vacate their headquarters, Elaine's reaction when she discovered their trusted landlord was the woman they dismissed without a second thought, and Danielle, when she realized her shiny new office would be off-limits before she had time to hang a single-frame diploma. But mostly, I thought of my grandmother's voice. Real power doesn't come from the tallest tower, it comes from knowing the land underneath it is yours. When I pulled into my driveway, there was nothing flashy to suggest. I owned one of the city's most valuable commercial properties, just a small, quiet home, a carefully tended garden, a mailbox with my name. Another buzz, a message from Danielle. No hard feelings, right? You get, it's just business, family brunch on Sunday. I didn't reply. There would be time for brunches and excuses later, for now I had a job to do inside. I stepped into the real control center, my home office. This wasn't the sleek space I'd just been forced to leave behind. It was better. It was real. Here sat the deed to the building, the founding documents of Marlowe Ventures, and the binders, colour-coded, indexed of every shady meeting, every whisper of favouritism, every HR complaint brushed under the rug. I opened my laptop first in email to all Andover Tech employees scheduled for 8:55 AUM. Please be advised that due to unforeseen circumstances, all staff are to work remotely until further notice. Building access will be suspended, starting at 9 a.m. Next, the press release Marlowe Ventures terminates lease with Andoverte, effective immediately due to documented ethical and contractual violations. Finally, I sent instructions to building security change. All access codes locked down at 9 a.m. sharp. My phone buzzed once more, this time from my mother. Danielle explained everything. We're disappointed in how you handled this. I stared at the message, unreadable emotion churning quietly beneath the surface. Then I turned back to my screen. I wasn't done yet. Why couldn't you just support your cousin? I placed the phone face down on my desk tomorrow. They'd understand, all of them, that success built on lies, manipulation, and betrayal isn't success at all. It's rot beneath a glossy surface. Outside, the Seattle rain returned, tapping steadily against my window as I finalized the last preparations in less than 24 hours. Andover Tech would learn what happens when you underestimate the quiet one. The one who stayed late said little and observed everything. They thought they were firing an employee. They didn't realize they were waking a landlord who had spent 5 years laying the groundwork for this exact moment. And Danielle, she'd learned that some battles are already lost the moment you step onto the board. I closed my laptop and stood by the window, watching rain cascade down the glass tomorrow's forecast. Stormy, with a 100% chance of consequences. At 8:30, I am sharp. I parked across from the Andover Tech building, coffee in hand, watching it all unfold. Employees poured in, chatting, laughing, unaware that their workplace was minutes away from lockdown at 8:45. Ben Andover's sleek black Audi rolled in, followed by Danielle's shiny rose gold Tesla. Of course, a coordinated entrance, her big day at exactly 9 a.m. My phone buzzed, a flurry of notifications, access codes changed. Entrance sealed, Naomi on video eviction notice served to a very confused receptionist from my car. I saw the ripple effect, employees puzzled at the locked doors. Security waving them back. Groups forming, phones out, and then the crescendo. Ben stormed out. Eviction notice in hand, his face dark with disbelief. He shouted into his phone, barking orders that no longer mattered. My phone rang Ben, and over straight to voicemail. Then again, Danielle. I watched her pacing near the front doors, lips tight. Her designer heels slipping on the wet pavement declined a third time. Elaine. Andover declined. Then came the text from Danielle. What did you do? I stepped out of my car, smoothed my jacket and walked across the street. Heads turned, murmurs spread. Ben spotted me, eyes narrowing as recognition hit. You. He growled, eviction notice crumpled in his fist. Marlowe Ventures. It's you. I smiled, voice calm. Good morning, Mr. Andover. I see you've received the notice regarding the lease termination, I said calmly. Ben held up the document, face flushed. This is outrageous. You can't just kick us out. We have rights, actually, I said, pulling a thick folder from my briefcase. I flipped to a highlighted section clause, 9 subsection B of your lease agreement. Any breach of ethical corporate governance, including wrongful termination, nepotism and workplace defamation, constitutes immediate grounds for lease termination. Would you like to review the documentation from my dismissal yesterday? Danielle stepped forward, the confidence draining from her face. This is revenge. You're just bitter. I got your job, took my job. I let out a dry laugh. Danielle, you didn't take anything. You colluded with Elaine to plant rumours about me. You fabricated complaints. You convinced my parents to guilt me into stepping aside. You pocketed my severance. I motioned toward the building behind them, and now you've lost everything. No office, no title, no company address. Elaine elbowed her way through the crowd, her polished calm unravelling. Ben say something, she can't do this, but Ben was already on his phone, likely with his legal team, and as I watched his expression sink with each word, I knew they were confirming what I already knew. The eviction was airtight, and Marlowe Ventures held every right to enforce it. 24 hours, I announced, my voice carrying over the murmuring crowd. That's how long Andover Tech has to vacate the building. Anything left behind will be treated as abandoned. Ben's voice cracked. You expect us to move an entire company in 24 hours? We have contracts client the same amount of time you gave me to clear out my office. I replied, nothing. Personal, remember, just business. Danielle grabbed my arm, her eyes wide and glassy. You can't do this to me. Clara, I'm your family. I gently removed her hand. Exactly, and you always said family first. So that's what I'm doing. I'm protecting my real family. Marlowe Ventures' bones were out. People were recording. I didn't care. I had waited 5 years for this moment. Oh, and one more thing, I added, pulling a second document from my folder. This is a formal notice of legal action against Andover Tech for defamation, workplace discrimination, and wrongful termination. Ben lurched toward me, fury contorting his face, but Elaine held him back. You'll regret this, he growled. I'll bury you in litigation. I smiled. I'll see you in court. I smiled, thinking about the archive I had built over the last 5 years. Every offhand comment, every backroom deal, every whisper of misconduct documented, every email, every meeting, recording, every shady transaction preserved with precision. I looked forward to discovery, I said calmly, watching Ben's expression twitch. I'm sure the board will be very interested in some of the materials I've compiled that landed. He knew exactly what I meant. The questionable vendor kickbacks, the consulting payments to his golf buddy, the HR complaints swept under the rug, the quiet pattern of systematic exclusion and discrimination, all of it ready to be unsealed. I checked my watch. You've got 23 hours and 45 minutes left. I'd start packing as I turned to walk away. Danielle called out, voice trembling. What about Sunday brunch? Mum and Dad already made reservations. I paused, then turned slightly. Tell them I won't make it. I'll be busy leasing to a new tenant, one that doesn't treat loyalty like a liability. The next few hours were chaos. Box trucks lined the street. Employees rushed out with monitors and chairs. Executives whispered frantically into phones. I watched the entire spectacle from Naomi's office across the street, where we were already receiving offers from new tenants by midnight. Andover Tech was mostly cleared out. I returned to what had been my office. Danielle hadn't even taken down my framed vision board or the founders a quote of the month. I stood by the window, watching Seattle's skyline glow in the night. My phone buzzed endlessly from Mum. "How could you betray your cousin like this? Dad, we didn't raise you to be vindictive." "Daniela, you've destroyed everything." But one message made me pause and smile. It was from my grandmother, sent from my late grandfather's old number. "He would be so proud. You're the only one who understood what real power looks like." The next morning, headlines exploded. An Overtech evicted in corporate scandal. Family feud erupts into business blow-up. But my favourite, Marlowe Ventures, steps into the spotlight. The quiet force behind Seattle's property boom. The article praised our strategic property acquisitions and long-term vision, naming the Andover building as just one piece of a much larger portfolio. A week later, I received a dinner invitation, not from my parents, but from my grandmother. When I arrived, she was already waiting seated in her favourite chair, a spark in her eyes that said everything without a single word. "Your grandfather kept a journal," my grandmother said, handing me a weathered leather notebook. "He wrote about, you often said you were the only one who truly understood his lessons about patience and where real power lies." I opened it instantly, recognizing his neat, looping handwriting. My granddaughter asked me today why I invest in old buildings instead of new ones. I told her what my father told me. Real value isn't in what stands above the ground, but in owning the ground itself. She understood. "Look how far that girl will go," I blinked, holding back. Emotion, Danielle called my grandmother, added, pouring tea. "She's moving, says she can't find work here anymore." I nodded, thinking of the email I'd received earlier that day, a proposal from a leading tech firm to lease the building. Their plan, a startup incubator on the lower floors, offering affordable space and mentorship to first-time founders. She always said, my grandmother mused, "Revenge is a poor man's game." Real success isn't about payback, it's about getting ahead and bringing others with you. I smiled. "It was never about revenge," I said softly. "It was about justice, and now it's about building something better that night." As I drove home, I passed the building that had once carried the Andover Tech name. The sign was gone now, just clean glass waiting for the future. My phone buzzed a message from Danielle. Her first in weeks that wasn't defensive or bitter. "I get it. Now, what you built, what it took. I'm sorry I tried to take it from you. I never saw how hard you worked, and I didn't reply right away. Some truths take time, some apologies require more than words. But as I pulled into my driveway and stepped out beneath the cloudy Seattle sky, I thought again of my grandfather's words. True power isn't about having the biggest office. It's about owning the ground beneath their feet, and finally, they all understood. If you've made it this far, thank you. This isn't just a story about contracts and office buildings. It's a story about worth and how sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who overlook it the most. I never set out to destroy anyone. I just stopped letting them destroy me. And if you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or made to feel like your loyalty was a weakness, I hope my story reminded you that quiet strength is still strength. You don't have to shout to be powerful. You don't need revenge to win. You just need to know your worth and keep building even when no one's watching. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from something or someone to protect your peace? Have you ever been pushed aside only to come back stronger? Share your experience in the comments. Let's talk about it. Because sometimes the most empowering thing we can do is speak the truth and remind others they're not alone. And if this story moved, you consider subscribing